Welcome back to another Spot On chat. I'm Rebecca Monet with Zorakle Profiles. We are a profiling company that provides profiling tools for franchisors and for franchise consultants that help facilitate a right fit between a prospective franchisee and a franchise concept. So with me today is Bryan Lewis. He's the founder and the owner of the Press Waffle Company. It's a unique food concept based out of Dallas, Texas, that specializes in authentic Belgian waffles, savory waffle creations, and locally roasted coffee. Bryan and his wife are part of an organization called Young Life. It's a Christian outreach ministry to young people. And Bryan and his brother Caleb, was it last year? I think was on Shark Tank. All the investors were incredibly interested and wanting to invest in Press Waffle Company. So I'm hoping a little bit later he can talk about that. But for now, welcome, Bryan. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. It is good to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
So we're going to talk about Shark Tank later. I think there's more important things to talk about because what I'm seeing in you is a family man. You addressed that in our earlier Spot On chat. And I wanted to dig more deeply into your relationship with your wife, who's also 100% behind you, and the things that you did and are doing with Young Life. Can you tell us a little bit about Young Life and how the two of you are involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Young Life is an organization that I actually was a part of when I was in high school. It's actually how I, came to my faith, really, being involved in that and going to camps in the summer and things like that. So, Young Life is a Christian outreach organization for non-Christians. It is an organization that puts together essentially parties every week, where we invite everyone from the school. Doesn't matter if you are Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. Come here, have fun in a safe environment. And yes, we're probably going to talk about Jesus at some point during the conversation.
Of course we are.
But at the end of the day, it's a place for kids to let loose and feel safe. So my wife and I, when we got married, I told her, I said, hey, I want to lead Young Life. It made such a big impact on my life. Like, I know that I want to lead. And she had not been involved in Young Life. In fact, was probably anti Young Life in high school. But she said, okay. And so I dragged her into it, and she didn't know what she was getting into. So we volunteered for 4 years, and the way it works in our area is we came on and we took a group of freshmen, boys and girls. I led the boys, she led the girls, and we followed them all through high school. So we watched them grow up from freshmen to sophomore, junior, seniors, and they graduated 2 years ago now. And now we don't lead anymore. We're now on committee, which is kind of the support side. So now we support all of those other volunteer leaders that are doing the same thing, just by making sure they have dinner before club, and giving them T-shirts and throwing Christmas parties for the leadership, to know how much we appreciate
them. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's a lot of, and it's all volunteer. And it's a huge time commitment and a huge relational commitment, but it was an incredible 4 years, and so glad that we could do it and see those guys grow up.
Yeah. So it's interesting. My daughter-in-law was a school teacher for 17 years, and she runs, I don't know if it's Young Life or if it's another program, an after school program for kids, and has for years. And just a wonderful opportunity, like you said, for children to come together, or kids to come together. And
it was really interesting because at the time I was actually teaching at the school that we led at. Mm-hmm. So it was a very fortunate position to be in, where not only did I see these kids at Young Life, like most leaders do, I also saw them every single day, whether it was in my classroom or in the hallways or at the football games or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, very, very much a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. And that's the same way with my daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
She was a teacher, which allowed her to
Yeah.
have relationships and understanding of what a kid was going through.
Yeah.
And then, in this another environment. So I applaud what you and your wife um, have been up to now in a leadership role, which you tend to do. You tend to just go straight into leadership is what you
Yeah.
tend to do, and get people just to sort of follow you. You're like the Pied Piper.
I
Um,
guess
so,
sometimes they don't know where I'm going, but
but Bryan always
sometimes I
goes.
don't know where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah, Bryan goes to cool places, and he's got
There you go.
waffles. So let's go. So you shared with me some of the struggles that you and your wife have gone through, um, and I'm wondering if you feel comfortable sharing some of those challenges in building your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, for sure. It's a huge part of who I am. It's a huge part of our story as a couple. So certainly willing to talk about it. I mean, basically, essentially, we over the past, gosh, how many years now? 6 years, something like that. Have been on an infertility journey. We got married, and we knew for sure that we wanted to have kids. We wanted a big family. That's something that's always been important for both of us. And in the movies, hey, you want a family? Boom, you got it.
That's
That's how it
right.
happened. But that's not how it happened for us. And so we tried for a long time, and had 2 losses, during that time, which was obviously devastating. And so that led us into, fertility treatments and things like that. And, luckily we didn't have to go all the way down the road to IVF, which is, where a lot of people end up. We were able to do other procedures and got pregnant that way. But then, in true we can't plan our lives fashion,
Mm.
our first daughter was born at 24 weeks. So she
Wow.
weighed 1 pound 4 ounces when she was born. My wife's water broke, and I remember so clearly because I was actually on the food truck at the time, and my wife calls me and she was like, I don't know if I'm peeing all over my, like something is wrong with me. And I was like, babe, just calm down. It's okay. No, I'm like, I have no idea what's
Of
going
course
on because
not.
we're 24 weeks in. Like, there's no way that like that's what's
Mm-mm.
happening. And like half an hour later, she called me and she was like, my mom's taking me to the hospital. And I was like, and so I'm on the truck with Caleb. We're getting ready for a huge event, in an hour. And I was like, bro, I gotta go. Like, I gotta
Wow.
go. And he said, all right, I got this. Don't worry about it. And so I got an Uber, went to the hospital, and my wife was on completely horizontal bed rest for 10 days. Couldn't sit up, couldn't stand up, couldn't walk, just totally laid down because her water had broken, and she was 23 weeks,
Wow.
and that's, for anybody that's been through this, that's viability. I mean, at 23 weeks, they won't even deliver a baby. It's not even a question. And so, when we were in there in day one, and praying together and thinking about it, was like, what's our goal? Our goal is to make it to 24 weeks. Let's get to
Right.
20, like that's our first goal, and, we just want to make sure that we get to that minimum standard. And sure enough, at 24 weeks on the dot, they said, my wife got an infection, and they said, we have to
We got to do
take the
this.
baby out. We got to do this. We don't know
Hmm.
if she's ready or whatever. But so she went into surgery, had a C-section, and they pulled Lainey out, and uh, 1 pound 4 ounces
Tiny.
still
Yeah.
came out and cried, which was
Thank you, God.
incredible. Yeah, thank you, God. And so we
Hmm.
spent 145 days in the hospital. Just all kinds of ups and downs there. And at the time, my food truck was less than a year old. We had just started this business. And so I was back and forth between the hospital and trying to do that. And really, leaned on Caleb so much to, he went and did events by himself. When we were done with stuff, he'd say, "Hey, you go, I'll clean up," and all that kind of stuff. So, huge to have him there to back me up during that time. But Lainey is now 3 years old, and she is crazy, and she is fiery, and whatever fire got her through those first 145 days is still in her. So we're super blessed, and then we have another daughter now too, who's just over 1 years old, and she came early too, but that's not as dramatic a story because we were kind of expecting it. It's like, well, this is probably going to happen again. So she was like 5 weeks early, but certainly not as scary. And she's a little chunky monkey too. So
chunky monkey.
Yeah. I got me and my girls.
And your girls.
I got a boy dog though. So we dog.
That helps. But all that estrogen in your family.
Yeah.
What a story. It goes back again to your family values and having the support of Caleb and your family during that time so the business could continue to sustain and grow. That worry to some degree was off of your mind, and you could focus on what you needed to focus on, which was your wife, that baby, and doing what was necessary to come through that. But what an incredible story. It's a more common story than I'd like to.
Yeah. And that's why when you ask about talking about it, it has become such an integral part of my wife. She's very active on social media and blogging and things like that, mostly from the perspective of educating and outreach and support for infertility struggles. And it's something that's so, going through it, we all of a sudden out of the woodwork, people that we have known for years and years and years, we find out that they went through the same thing, were going through the same thing at the time. And yeah, it's much more common than people realize. And so we do think it's important to talk about it because it can be a really isolating and
scary,
vulnerable thing to go through, whether it's a premature birth or a loss or just not being able to thinking something's wrong with your body, like whatever it is, it's very personal, it's very sensitive. And so we try to be really open about our story, and that people aren't alone.
They're not alone. But you're right. I think historically this was not for open discussion. And so I'm so grateful that you and your wife are opening yourself up and saying, this was our struggle. Can we listen to anyone else? We want you to know that there's others like ourselves that have experienced this and understand psychologically, physically, and every other way what's involved here. So to just know and care about one another, to me, is so important, especially during these big events in our lives. And having babies, it's a big event.
It is a big event. Yeah.
It's a big event.
Thanks for giving me a chance to talk about it.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to wrap up this Spot On chat right now, and I'm going to ask you to come back for another.
Gladly.
Thanks, Bryan.